Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. This one will be part 4 in the item system tutorial series. This is where we finally actually get onto creating the UI. There will be very little coding in this video. It'll just be a lot of creating UI elements and hooking them up to the code we wrote in the last video. There will be a teeny bit of coding we're going to do right at the start, just with like one script, and I'll explain why in a minute. One quick warning though is I'll be using some code that I've not written in this series. I've done on these two videos I'm going to show you in a second. I have the Game Dev Architecture Event System 1 and 2. You should look at those. In reality, you only have to look at the first one, and I'll explain the second one as we go through. But we're going to be using our own scriptable object event system so that the inventory, for example, when it is updated, when items change, we can then alert the UI. You can do this via hard coding it, but obviously hard coding stuff in general is advised against. You can do it fine, but then the problem is when you start having new systems that use the inventory, for example, you have to then add more code to then call those events and subscribe. It's much easier if you can do it in the editor without any coding. So I'll link this video below. I'll link both of them if you want. These two here, just go check them out. Or you can just go to the GitHub page, which the link is on the screen now and in the description. You can just get the code that I'm using in this video anyway. So either way, you need to do that. Let's get into the coding. But first, obviously, we have to thank my patrons, with special thanks to Flow State Games, Average Morning, Thomas Huster, Remy Baldwin, and Phil Baum. If any of you would like to help support the channel via Patreon, then the link is in the description below. Now we can finally get into it. Okay, so first I'm just going to quickly show you the game event system I was just on about. So all I've done is I've created one void event. Now, as I said, if you've watched those videos, you'll know what a void event is. It's just create game events, void event. That's only going to be there if you've actually either followed those videos or looked to my GitHub. The code for it is here. So in this events folder, I've got, here's a void event, scriptable object that does this, and then it uses the type void. It's basically, Unity have their built-in event system. Like, so if you have, for example, a button, let me just quickly show you. So if you have a UI button, which is, I'm blind there, it has, here you go, when you click, it raises an event. The thing is, by default, it's only a void event. Essentially, it's an event that has no parameters. All you get from it is just an event happening. You don't get any data through it. But maybe you want data to come through this event. Maybe when the inventory is updated, you might want to say which item was updated. For our sake, we don't. We just want a void event, which is going to say, hey, the inventory was updated. But let's say, for example, you pick up an item. You want to say, like, hey, this item was picked up. And then some part of your UI might say, I'm here to display a notification when an item's picked up. So it listens for that event. And when it gets it, it's like, all right, here's the item that I need to display on the UI. So it's very good to use event systems because it's just better than hard coding, and you'll get stuck and get bogged down with it all if you don't use that. So that's just one thing to note. Okay, so the little bit of code I said we have to change. Over here we've got the inventory script, which is fine. We don't have to recode any of this, it's fine. We're just going to move it to a different class, because the problem is this is every bit of logic for an inventory, right? But the thing is, this inventory is a scriptable object because it's for the player specifically. If anything, I could call it the player inventory, but I'm going to leave it as inventory. But let's say, for example, enemies have inventories, right? They're going to use the same logic and the same code. And we don't want to have to rewrite it. So what we should do is we should make a class, just a normal bog standard class that has this logic in it. So we're going to copy and paste it into there. And then the inventory should have an instance of that class. So then we can add extra logic on for how the player's inventory is different to the enemies. So for example, the player inventory will use the event to raise like, hey, UI update. Whereas obviously when the enemies do stuff with their items or whatever, or the vendors have an inventory, there's not going to be a UI pop-up saying, you acquire this item when the enemy gets it. You don't want to use the same system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and just create a new class. Why not? Let's just copy and paste inventory. And I'm going to call it item container. We already have item container for the interface, but let's just call this like item container. Like that. Or, to be honest, I can just say this is an inventory, but I'm going to go with item container. Assume I've spelled that right. Let's go item container. This is a script. No, this is not a scriptable object, okay? This is just a normal class, but it's of type item container, and it's going to be serializable, so we can save it when we get around to doing that. Now, the problem it's having here is I used comma, it's colon. So we have the item slot array, we have, obviously we'll need to make the serialized field private later, but it's fine. With the item array, we have the delegate for when items are updated, and we have all our functions. We should also add we need to be able to set this size for different things. So let's just say this is 0, But then we can have a, where should I put this? Put it above here. We can have a public item container that takes in an integer size, and it initializes the item slot array as a new item slot array with size amounts, like amount of elements. So we can have different sized inventories for different characters in the game. We don't need to use Unity Engine for this. And then now we can close this item container, go back to the inventory, and essentially just delete all this because it's already in the other file. So we're going to go up, but not all the way. We want to go to, well, actually, yeah, we do want to go all the way. And we want to say now that the inventory has a public item holder or item container. Item container. That's just a get. And we initialize it to a new item holder, which requires you to pass in the size. So we're going to say the player has 20 slots in his inventory. And we don't need the interface anymore. So now the inventory currently is just a scriptable object that stores one of these. But obviously we're then going to add extra stuff to this later when it comes to saving and loading. But now we've got this, we want to listen into the event we wrote in the item container for when it changes. So we're going to write a public void on enable and public void on disable. And we're going to take one of those void events that I talked about earlier. So we're going to say at the top, serialize field, private void event. We're going to import the custom events. And I'm going to say on inventory items updated. Okay. And then when we enable, we want to subscribe to that event. And when we disable, we want to unsubscribe. So we're going to say item container dot on items updated plus equals on inventory items updated dot raise, which is the function in that. And then we'll copy and paste that to the disable, but put minus equals. So we unsubscribe when we disable this, because there's no start function on a scriptable object. So now we've done that, we're going to have a few errors, just 2 errors apparently. So we need to now go here, and instead of saying inventory.getItem slot by index, we want to say .item container dot, because it's not the inventory, it's the item container. And obviously we want to go put that in the other spot that we get the error, which is just inventory.item container dot swap. Now that it's happy with everything, we're going to create a folder. I'm going to call it game data, and I'm going to go inside here and put in a we don't actually have the inventory, and that's because in the inventory we didn't write here how to expose it in the inspector, so we have to put create asset menu, file name. If you've made scriptable objects before, you'll be used to this. New inventory, menu name equals items/inventory. Close that, and then when it compiles, we should be able to go back into Unity and right click, create a new items inventory and call it like inventory underscore player. And then it wants a void event, the one I made earlier. So, you know, there's nothing you have to set up on this void event, you just have to make it. Apparently there's a problem there, but it's fine. So now we can use this event on the UI to tell it when to update. Okay, so now we can get into the actual creating of the UI. Finally, I keep saying we're going to get there, and now we actually are there. So I'm going to just delete these and create from scratch. So we're going to want to create an empty game object, just recenter it to the center of the world. And I'm going to call it inventory for now. Maybe inventory UI. And then on inventory UI, we will add something for being able to toggle it open and close. But for now, we're just going to have it open. On here, we want to create a canvas. So create a new canvas, like so. I'm going to call it inventory canvas. And then we're going to keep the graphic raycaster because we need to be able to click on it. We're going to keep the canvas scaler but change it to scale of screen size and set it to our working resolution. And then drag that to the right so we match with height. It's just for scaling. You'll see when you drag this around onto different resolutions. And then the canvas there is fine. Then we're going to go and create a background. So we need to go and create on the canvas a UI new image. And this is going to be the background, so you can do whatever you want with this, you know, just get your size, maybe dock it to the bottom right would make more sense, and then give it an offset, so maybe like minus 300. If I give it a width of 500 and a height of like 600, then I could go like minus 250, 300. that would bring it to the bottom left corner completely. Then you can add like a padding essentially. So you want to add, subtract 100, increase by 100. If you want it there, you can always move that around. Okay, I'm going to change the color to make it a bit more gray. Obviously in the scene it's like background is blue, so that's fine. Then on the inventory panel, we want to create an empty game object to store all the slots. So create an empty and call it slots holder, maybe. You can name things whatever you want. And this slots holder is going to stretch to fit this parent, and it's going to have a grid layout component on it. So a grid layout group is going to order the children. So if we just make some like UI images beneath it, so make a UI image and just duplicate it 20 times because we're going to have 20 slots. So we've got 20 now. We now need to organize this on here to display the slots. So it's really up to you how you want your UI to look. I'm just going to do some fiddling with this. I'll speed it up so you guys have to sit here and watch me do it. Okay, so those are my settings. I just, I'm not too fussed about how it looks. If it's like perfectly aligned, that's up to you to deal with. Now we need to actually make a prefab for an item slot, because there's going to be loads, and if we ever want to make more, we'd have to recode it or reset it up. So we need to go to our prefabs folder, which we do have. Apparently I've got an inventory slot. I must have made that last time and then cancelled it. So I'm going to delete that and just do it again with you. So on this one item slot here, we're going to call it inventory slot and save it as a prefab, like so. And then on here, we're going to start setting up the inventory slot. So what does the inventory slot do or have? Well, let's make it be, the background be black. So then, yeah, I don't know, whatever you want. Make sure that's raycast on. Then we want to say this has an inventory slot script, which we wrote last time. We can't actually drag in everything yet because we haven't done it, but for this inventory we can. We can assign the player inventory. And then we want a void listener, which is from the event thing I was on about. We're going to listen for items being updated, and when they are, we want to tell the inventory slot to update their UI. All this code we wrote last time, so that's good to go. Then on the inventory slot, we want to add a child image. So we're going to go inventory slot UI image and give it some padding. So tell it to scale and then have a padding of maybe 5 on every side. Maybe 10, it's up to you really. 10's good. And then on here, this is where we'll be setting the sprite for the icon. We want to have a canvas group component on here. We want to have a layout element group. This is stuff we actually modify in code the settings of, like when we drag items. And then we're going to have an inventory item drag handler, which we wrote last time. And all we want is reference to the item slot UI. So we can actually just drag in the parent like that. And then on the parent, we can drag the image of the child in. We need to name this maybe item icon. You can actually get those in code if you want to do like get component and children and stuff. It's up to you. And then the final thing to add is on here we want to do UI text mesh pro text for the stack count. So we want to maybe dot that to the bottom left of this thing, and we want to make it very small. Maybe actually I'll just go across. So we want the width to be 80, y to be, I don't know, 20, and height to be 40. So it fits like that. Like so. Yeah, I'll just put that back to how it was. And now we want the text to auto size, dock to the bottom left. Maybe the stack count would say x10 or just 10. We'll just leave it as a number, like so. And we could just make the text black, but then the problem is if there's an item icon there, then we want to be able to see it. So it's up to you to tweak this. When it's in full screen, it might look a bit different, Get a good font for this. Maybe make the text bold to make it more visible. It's probably a good idea. You can have some fun tweaking that. I'm just going to leave it how it is now. I'm happy with it as is. And then now we can actually drag in the item quantity text to the field on here. And finally, this inventory slot, we can press apply all. So everything is set up for this slot. And now we can minimize that and we can duplicate 20 times. Select all of them and call them just inventory slot. You can actually write some code in the inventory slot so they number their name on the hierarchy to whatever they are, but that's fine. So that's what our inventory looks like now. Obviously, if you want to change something, so for example, if I said, you know what, I actually prefer it to have 5 padding, obviously because we're using prefabs, if I just make sure to do it on the last side as well, it actually does it to all of them. So maybe you like that, I'll leave it like that just, you know, as an example. We can update them all. The inventory UI could be a prefab, but I'm just going to leave that how it is. And now I'm just thinking, have we linked everything up? I'm pretty sure we have. Now we just need a way to test this. If we press play, let's just see what happens. So I feel like these will just stay as they are. No, actually no, because they update on start. Okay, that's good, that's good. So now I'm going to write some code just to test on the inventory, like putting in an item since we can't get it from anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder called resources, which we'll use later when we make an item database, and I'll explain why we might need to do that. And then inside here, in resources, we'll make items, and inside items, we can make maybe consumables. And inside consumables, we can make a new item. Consumables not there, because just like earlier, in consumable item, which we've already made, we need to type create asset menu, file name equals new consumable item, and then menu name equals items slash consumable item. I don't know. You don't have to put item on the end, do whatever you want. So now obviously we can right click, create items consumable, and we'll just call it item underscore consumable underscore test. And we'll say this is called health potion, and it uses this sprite, does something maybe, I don't know, whatever. And now if we go to the inventory, we can write a function, just do it down here. It's a public void like test add that just says item container dot add item, and then we'll just say at the top item slot test item slot equals a new item slot, and we're going to add the test item slot. Okay, and then this test add actually needs to have a context menu test add. So now we can actually call that function on the inventory by pressing a button, since we don't have any way in the game to test it. The way we do this now is go to the inventory, press play, and let's just oh, apparently we can't see that because I'm guessing item slot isn't serializable. Yep, so serializable, waiting for that to go away. Yeah, cool. Now we can see it. So let's say we want to add a consumable item and we want to add 1. Okay. Now, did I actually set on the consumable? If I go to consumable item, notice how I didn't set the max stack. So where does it actually? I didn't make these fields visible because I'm silly. So we need to make these visible by doing serialize field before it. And then, yeah, back in the hotbar item, I'm sure I did everything. Yep, cool. And now we'll get more data on here we can set, which is kind of important data. So the max stack for a health potion, let's say 5, okay? So in the inventory, we're saying when we press the button that I'm going to show you, we should add 1 of these to the inventory. So if I go this, a test add, we've now got 1, test add, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. I should be able to move it around. You see I can drag it into the different slots. If I add another one, it adds it into its own slot, and I can now swap these around, so the 5 goes there, whatever. Currently dragging out doesn't actually do anything, but obviously we're going to add something where you drop it on the floor or you try and break it maybe. And then obviously now if I said I actually want to add 3 of this item, so when I do add, what do you expect? Well, I don't expect it to go there. I expect it to add 3 to this one to make 4. We've got 4 there. Nice. And if you keep adding, that brings that up to 5, and then we've got 2 left over there. So that's it. That's this video done. Obviously we can swap items, move them around, stack them, and so on. Leave suggestions below for what you want to see next. I think next should be the hotbar. I reckon we'll do the hotbar next, so you can put items on there and press like to use them. Feel free to expand this as much as you want. The link's in the description below for the GitHub in case you had any problems and need help. Check out my Patreon if you want to help support the channel. Discord link in the description below too. I Twitch stream every 2 days, so my Twitch link's there as well. Go follow, it would mean a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already. But apart from that, thanks for watching and goodbye.